portions of this show are recorded. Strap in and be prepared.
You just heard Baby J about 3 minutes give his entire A to Z on what was going on. I didn't interrupt you.
I don't even like I got to everything, honestly.
No, you didn't get to everything.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, Melissa Lombardi, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I can see Dan Lanning sitting in his office, rubbing his hands together and saying, yeah, bring it on. You're just giving me juice.
I think you could be the type of team that has guys that excel in certain things. You don't need somebody that's great at everything. You need to be able to put guys in position where they're going to succeed.
And some smiles.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing working? No, that's why you got to do this. You got to go.
Hello?
Hello? Testing, testing,
it's like the little
testing.
girl in Nemo where she's tapping on the glass.
Fishy! Fishy, wake up, Fishy!
It's Danny Havel.
We have to be more specific. We have a lot of pickle things going on,
know.
apparently.
Justin Grossweiner.
It's a Schwar bomb. That's a man right there hitting that ball.
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.
Hello, neighbors, and welcome high atop the Delta Tri in the Crystal Palace. Live in Eugene and Newport from the Bigfoot Beverages Studios, this is the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk, the Danny and Justin radio program. Thanks for lending us your ears for the next hour. We're going to fill them up with some great information, some fun, some humor, some moaning and complaining and chest beating. I know you want to get in on this. I know you want to get on this. Thanks for tuning in. Fox Sports Eugene, Fox Sports Newport. We've got Landon Tengwall coming up. We've got the great Skopil Damas, Erik Skopil. We've got you. We've got a rant about the college football playoff rankings. No, it's not just because of Oregon, but that plays into it. We'll also talk Oregon football, Oregon basketball, as we traverse through the next 54 minutes with you. But first, I am Danny Havel. Right over there is my tag team partner. You know him, you love him. It's Justin Grossweiner. We call him Baby J. What a boy!
One of those days, I'm just happy to be here. You know, I'm just happy to be here.
All right, you got it. You want to tell the Neil Everett story first?
Sure. Yeah.
You're infamous with Neil Everett right now.
He's gonna hopefully remember my name. I think I would if I were him and I didn't know who I was.
By the way, you can follow us on Danny and Justin on Twitter, Blue Sky. Also, go to Bigger Bets, bigger with a number 1 for the I. And that's where you can follow us for our Big Bet segment on Fridays with Coquel Casino. We just had the games dropped to us from the guys at Coquel Casino. And you also can pot us, Danny and Justin. Just remember Danny and Justin. Just go on the interweb and search that, and you'll find us everywhere. Okay, so you were participating in a press conference for the big game between Oregon and Gonzaga that's going to take place in December up at Moda Center.
December 21st. Yep.
Okay. So they had a press conference to, kind of generate interest around the game and sell some more tickets, yada 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 yada. That's great. Right. And you were participating.
I was invited to that, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And first of all, I love Neil Everett. He's
we've got to get Neil on the show.
Right in the pocket of I grew up watching him on SportsCenter, and SportsCenter, especially back then, was the thing that as a kid, that gets you into sports. Right.
And then he came out West Coast and did it with Stan. Neil and Stan for forever in L.A. and it was awesome. It was It was much watched television.
So the way it worked was you had to text a cue basically, and
you're talking fancy radio.
And they would call on you
lingo.
to answer a question. And for those who have seen my name written down, they will know that it is an objectively funny name. I think that's probably fair.
We have discussed this on the show.
I don't blame anybody for getting my name wrong. If you want to take it to another level, that's when I start to get like, okay, it's not that funny.
It was a point of contention for you growing up, though.
Yes, it was.
You were very sensitive about that. Okay.
So my, my name has certainly been something that has been talked about as a kid.
Spell the last 6 letters in your name.
Weiner.
Right. Okay.
So Weiner. But
Weiner.
It's not necessarily how it looks to some people. But anyway, so Neil Everett calls on me, and he calls me, should I say it?
Yes.
Grossweiner, which is,
Which is the mistake.
Which is fine.
Which is what you were sensitive.
Which is fine.
Okay.
So, I forgive Neil. No harm, no foul.
Neil,
I
you're
don't
fine,
hold
buddy.
against him.
Right.
And,
Love you, Neil.
got to ask a couple questions
Yeah.
to Mark Few and also to Dana Altman. So that was cool. The second time he called my name, he did get my name right. So that was awesome.
And he also gave you an attaboy.
He gave me an attaboy, and so I feel really good about that. And it was awesome to get to talk to Dana about sort of this game and what the team looks like right now. Obviously, they didn't start off extremely well last night, and he wasn't super pleased about the performance against Hawaii.
No, he was not super pleased about the performance against Hawaii. No, we have that drop. We're going to play that drop like 80 times today.
Now I'm just miserable.
There you go.
He was miserable. He still is miserable.
Yeah.
Ducks won last night. But,
Deservedly so.
right.
Probably.
So we are going to have all that audio with Mark and Dana that you're going to cut up, and we'll have it on the show tomorrow. We've been in a big time crunch today, as you well know. We have a packed show as well with a two-for interview. So we want to give it its due diligence and give it its what it deserves, which is talking about it a little bit more than we're going to have time to talk about now. So good job. Way to
Thank you.
be
It was
out there
fun.
representing the hood.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It was definitely, it felt very this feels cool to be a part of it and talk to these coaches. So no, it was fun to ask them a couple questions, and it's going to be interesting to watch sort of how these two teams progress to that December 21st date, because hey, right now these are two big brands and everybody looks good, but we'll see what happens by then. And could be a top 10 matchup. Could be something that isn't as exciting, but I think it'll be exciting for everybody just because of these two programs and who they are.
All right, we're going to get to Landon here in a second because I know he's waiting on the phone. But the Ducks did pick up the win last night. We'll talk about this a little bit more later on in the program. Erik Skopil will talk women's basketball with us. We also have some football talk with our boy Skopil Damas. Ducks did eke out the win by 1 over Hawaii. Remember when I said this is not going to be a great win? Well, it almost was a loss to was probably going to be a very bad basketball team. So before everybody starts jumping off buildings and things like that, just remind yourself of the fact that this is the first game without your starting point guard. There are going to be growing pains. You still got the win. A win is a win is a win is a win. Nobody's going to remember this game in the middle of January. They won't. We hope. 60-59, Ducks shoot 36% from the field, 13% from three, and they turned it over 21 times. That is not going to win you a whole lot of games in the Big Ten. But
no,
that's not a Big Ten opponent right now. We're not in the Big Ten yet. You still got time, right? Am I right? Okay.
Yeah, there's
All
still
right.
time, for sure.
All right, let's head on over to the Oregon Man Clinics hotline at 541-343-5673. Let's welcome in he's a returning guest and a good friend of ours. He is a part of the Landon Tengwall Show because that's his name. He's a national college football analyst. You can follow him, Landon Tengwall, Tengwall, on Twitter. He also does a YouTube show. Landon, you okay with the first college football playoff rankings? Did they get it right?
Yeah, I think they got it right for the most part. I think everybody's going to want to plead their case a little bit of here or there. I know Notre Dame was a hot topic of them maybe getting a little bit too much leeway, maybe because of their name and obviously being I think we lose sight of that. I think we lose sight
I think
of
you're
how
right.
important the brand is important.
Lost on me.
Apparently.
Right out of the gate.
Listen, if we want to have beef, though, I can get into the fact that I don't think ADs, athletic directors of anywhere, should be on the committee. That doesn't make sense to me.
Beautiful.
I don't believe it. I don't think they have enough time in their day. I know how I know Penn State's AD. He barely has time to have a meal, to use the bathroom. I don't think you have time to properly assess all the teams you should be looking at. So I don't know who the answer is. I don't know. I think guys like our pal Josh Pate. I think you get there's a couple other people, SVP from ESPN. I don't know. You get the cream of the crop to decide this thing that are level-minded people. I think they did a good job, though. But I'm just going to be with you. I like chaos. I'm here for chaos. So I'll go with you that I'm mad at the rankings.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it was pretty fair.
That's fair. And I think that for the most part, I would say that things I can understand kind of where people are coming from. There's a couple ones I don't really love. And the one I don't love Oregon being at 9. And one of the reasons I don't is that I hear them talking about the Penn State game as a negative now. They're saying, oh, well, you only beat Penn State by 3. And here we are. And obviously Penn State has fired their coach. And it's
Have they been to a whiteout, by the way?
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting to here is that
how do we contextualize this game now? Because is this sort of the flaw of these rankings as you look at that game and you go, well, now Penn State's this. But at the time, it was totally something else. And it almost feels like what Oregon did to Penn State is what led them to be what they are now. Like, shouldn't Oregon get credit for that rather than saying, well, it's only a 3-point or an overtime win against Penn State, double overtime win? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we know how quickly people's minds change and how quickly we forget. And the early in the season, feels so long ago. And I think most people have just thought of Penn State as such a joke for the past month that it's hard for them to reach back in their mind and remember what that game in Happy Valley really was. It was everything stacked against Dan Lanning in Oregon, and they came out here and they got it done on the East Coast in gritty fashion too. Dante Moore played one of his best games. Even statistically, he was up there, but I thought how he managed it was great. And then obviously went against Indiana, had some problems there, and hasn't fully gotten back on track. But you still see all the talent, and you see what he did in that Penn State game, and just kind of how they answered the bell there. And so I think you can't take that away from them. But I think naturally, as we get further and further, and Penn State gets worse and worse, and Penn State gets whooped by Indiana this weekend, it's going to continue to be hard for the national media to grasp that. I think it's going to be hard for them to reach back in their mind and remember what that win really meant for Dan Lanning in Oregon.
So the other one that I really am just not a fan of is Texas at 11. I just feel like this team, I know they beat Vandy last week, but I feel like they've been one play away from being an unranked team.
Yes.
Like they're that close to just not even being ranked. But here they are, and they're number 11. Speaking of big college football brands, so am I off the ledger here?
I'm with you. I can get down with that. I've definitely questioned some of Texas, especially their offensive line. I think that could get a little rocky for them. So I'd like to see them. Who they got? They got Georgia. They got a bye week, and then I think they got Georgia. So we'll see. I think it might all take care of itself.
Yeah, fair enough.
Absolutely. You can follow Landon Tengwall. He's a favorite of ours here on the Danny and Justin radio program. Follow him on Twitter, Instagram. He's got his own show. He's a national college football analyst, the Landon Tengwall Show, a former offensive lineman at Penn State. He joins us here. Let's talk about the game. All right. All of this other stuff, this stuff that we can bitch and moan about in terms of rankings and where everyone's going to be slotted when it's not all said and done. It'll be said and done after December 7th on where everybody lands. But let's talk about Iowa and Oregon. So Oregon's got a lot in front of them. They've got this game, then they've got Minnesota on a Friday, then they play USC after, I think, that right after that, and then they finish up with Washington on the road. So this game is kind of a tip of the sword. It's the next tip of the sword for Oregon. So when you started breaking down this tape, Landon, what are the things that you think Oregon needs to do well against the Hawkeyes going into Kinnick Stadium?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is you have to be able to come in and establish the run. Anytime you talk to an offensive lineman, that's where we're going to head. Mm-hmm. But I really do think it is important. I think that's important for Moore to be able to get into rhythm and find some quick, easy passes is if you're running the ball efficiently. And you're going against an Iowa front seven that has been really good. They gave Indiana some problems. They are a heavy blitz front. They're going to be shooting safeties, linebackers into the holes. So Ken Poncho, the center, Ken Pregnon had a great game against Wisconsin where he was just moving dudes. So I'm looking at all of that. How is this offensive line going to – I think they've done better, but bounce back, especially from that Indiana game where it felt like Indiana kind of won the battle up front on both sides, really. And I think there's going to be some pride for that Oregon offensive line. Can we get back to especially how we were playing against Penn State? And I think another element to it is you're going to Kinnick. I played there in 2021. Mm-hmm. It gets loud real quick, especially now you're doing, 3:30 kick there. Yep. It's going to be dark easily by the time you come out of halftime, but even the second quarter, it might start to get a little dark. So it always gets unchy, as the kids say, when it gets dark in Kinnick. So I know it was the loudest thing I've ever heard. It's very similar to how you guys are out in Eugene. It's not a huge stadium, but the way it's built and how loud the fans are, there's a lot that goes into that. So Poncho and company, they were fantastic with the silent cadence here in Happy Valley. I need to see more of that. And sometimes being on that silent cadence can affect your get off as an offensive lineman, getting off the ball, getting into that defensive lineman and driving them. So I think it's a big test for them up front. But at the same time, Iowa doesn't have the same horses they had in the secondary. They don't have the Geno Stone. They don't have the Cooper DeJeans types these days. So Decorian Moore, I think there's some ability there, Sadiq, those guys to stretch this team vertically, open it up. But I still think it all starts with being able to run the ball efficiently, get 4 or 5 yards per carry.
Landon, did Indiana give the rest of the teams in the country, and especially in the Big Ten, a roadmap on how to handle Oregon? And then the follow-up to that is, do you trust and believe Dan Lanning, Tosh Lupoy, Will Stein on the Oregon staff to be able to not switch up, but be able to adjust to what they saw and what Indiana threw at them? So that's a two-parter.
Yeah, so I think first off, Indiana's just a damn good team, so it's also hard to replicate what they did.
Right.
Obviously, keeping Oregon to 81 yards on the ground, I think, in that game on 30 rushes. So really good there. Obviously played with more kind of Moore's head a little bit at the end. But a lot of it, I think, that was hard was the going through a lot of his reads. Indiana was a heavy zone coverage team. They were dropping back, and they kind of forced Moore to really work through his reads instead of getting those back shoulder throws when you see a lot of man coverage and him kind of be decisive on where he wants to go. And Moore is one of the most talented guys in all of college football, but you've seen him struggle as of recent, especially when it comes to kind of reading and developing the whole play in front of him. So I think there's some of that. Like I said, the front seven for Indiana had a really good day against this Oregon offensive line. So I think there's a little bit of, hey, that Oregon offensive line has something to prove coming into this one. And then also it's kind of like which running back is going to pop off. Which running back can give you that explosive run that you need in this game? Is it going to be Davidson? Is it going like where are we going to go for that? Is De'Aaron Hill going to pop off? There's a running back that could possibly come back for this one, right?
No, we had Noah Whittington, so
Okay.
Maybe Lamar.
Yeah, Jaden
that's what I was
Lamar
thinking
might
about.
be able to come back. Yeah,
Lamar.
you're right. Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. Yeah. There
Okay,
could be.
Yeah, I think you look at all of that, and then you've obviously had McClellan kind of come on more, a little less of Benson. So can you get a playmaker alongside of Decorian Moore there and stretch this Iowa defense? This Iowa defense, like I said, when they had those great DBs, they were flourishing. Since 2009, they've had Parker there as the defensive coordinator since before I was born almost. And they've ran the same deep coverage, cover four, since 2009, most interceptions actually in all of FBS football. And so now they've started to kind of change their defense around. And they're playing some different schemes, and they've struggled a little bit on the back end of that defense. Mendoza, even though they only scored 20 and he only went for like 230, 240 yards, it was still a really efficient day passing on them. There was a lot there. There was a lot kind of clean off the bone. So I'm curious if Oregon especially can run the ball fairly efficiently. Can you start to take advantage of some of the deficiencies that Iowa has there on that back end of their defense?
I heard a theory about Dan Lanning that I'd love your thoughts on. And the theory was basically that because of the style of coach he was, and they were making the argument that it was because he's like a motivator as a coach. He's not like a scheme guy, but he's a motivator. And the argument was that he needs the momentum of the season to build, and that's what helps him make him an effective coach. And so the argument was, okay, well, he's not very good going into buys. And so I kind of was going, okay, well, some of these games, Washington, those were coming off of buys, but these are good teams as well. So, like, is that something that's valid for a head coach? Like, do you think there are coaches that need the momentum of a season and can struggle off of a buy, or is that just totally off base?
I mean, I guess it can. It's kind of a question. You got the motion? Are you able to just pick it up and run? I think Dan Lanning is one of those guys. But I think that's a good point of really where this Iowa game stacks up for Oregon in this season. It's been good. You had the little bump in the road there with Indiana. You've some struggles here and there. You have the damn near hurricane game a couple weeks ago. So now where are you from there? And this is kind of that sticking point. If this is a tough one and maybe you barely escape or even somehow you lose, well, that's really, really tough. But if you come in and you handle this and you dominate a team up front on both sides of the football that is very strong on the offense and defensive line, and you come out feeling good, I think this is where that momentum can build and you almost start to get that heavy swagger right where you want it going into your last couple games and then further on into the college football playoffs. And if all goes as it should, you also get to skip out on the Big Ten championship, which I think would be great for Oregon. You already have flashbacks of last year having to do that and what that led to. So I think Oregon fans are all right without the Big Ten championship. Let's get to the playoffs and let's win something significant here. So I think this is kind of that inflection point. Where do you go from here? Is this going to be the thing that propels Oregon to being one of the top teams in the nation from this game?
He's the host of the Landon Tengwall Show on YouTube. When's the next one dropping, Landon?
Oh, I got a video. It's coming out in 30 minutes. I did a video on Mike Elko and his possibility of. I'm on like my 6th episode of Penn State head coach profiles. So you don't have to be a Penn State fan if you're curious about some of these other head coaches. I did one on Jeff Brom. Coolest video ever. He drives a 2004 Honda Accord. Everybody knows the Jeff Brom XFL interview.
Yes.
Where he's like, hey, do I have a pulse? Yes. He's like, let's play some football. Where he gets put on a stretcher beforehand. I mean, it's the greatest stuff ever. So I'm enjoying it. So yeah, we got content coming out every single day.
And he's also you're on a mission now. I just see that you want to bring Chili's back to State College.
Dude,
okay, is this another show? Do we need to have another 30 minutes to talk about that?
I think we're going to have to find some time because I am the biggest Chili's fanatic that there is. I give them a ton of free publicity, so I just beg them for a free meal. I still haven't gotten anything back yet, so maybe one day. That's my goal. I'll know I've semi-made it when I can finally go ahead and nail a Chili's deal for myself. But I'm big on the Tripper Dipper. All that good stuff is good.
That's awesome, dude. Landon Tengwall joining us on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline. Here's a nugget for you. Oregon has won 108 straight games when holding opponents to 14 points or less, and they've done so 6 times in 8 games this season. So my question is about the Iowa offense. What are there any? I mean, it's been kind of much maligned over the last few years. Kirk Ferentz and kind of slam and pound and punting and all that. So, is there enough offense that the Hawkeyes can try and generate against this Oregon defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's the run game. That's what it is. I've studied them recently, and Penn State played them. The passing attack, there's really not much there, especially when you got Finney and company. I don't think there's going to be a lot there. It's all on this Oregon front seven.
Okay.
And so I think you come into this, and this Iowa offensive line, this is the best offensive line they've faced. It is all around better than Indiana. Indiana has some really good spots, but they also have a couple weak points. And so I think this is the best test. Logan Jones, their center at Iowa, best center in America. They got a kid named Jennings Dunker at tackle with a G. I mean, come on. It doesn't get more Iowa than that. They're all having whole milk with dinner. They're driving Ford F-150s, and they're there to run the damn ball. I'll tell you what. And but their big thing is getting outside in the run game. They're going to run a lot of outside schemes. So not only am I looking at the linebackers in Betcher and Mixon, how are they covering from sideline to sideline? How's their tackling? How's their block shedding and getting off of those tight ends that are in space? And we know these Oregon tight ends are really good blockers, so that's a piece of it. But I think also you look at the interior, and Amari Washington's been playing some of the best football of any defensive tackle in America. But the other guy I'm looking at is Bear Alexander, who's really come on since that Penn State game. It was kind of wishy-washy those first couple weeks, and there was some small flashes. But then Penn State just came alive, and he has been playing some really, really good football, looked great against Wisconsin. So now they face the best interior that they've faced in Stevens, Jones, and a couple other guys. And so I'm curious to see how do they stack up against what is a real test. It's going to get physical. It's going to be one of those gritty games. I think the good news is, as much as we said, hey, everybody's kind of forgotten about it, Oregon was already in a real gritty game with Penn State, and they came out on top. So I think there's a little bit more of that formula. Obviously not as much talent on this team out in Kinnick, but it's a team that plays together, and they know their fundamentals in their scheme.
Yeah, it gets me back to my roots. That's some real Big Ten football right there. But what kind of statement do you think Oregon could make in this game? Like, say they come in there and they win by 2-3 touchdowns. Like, it could happen. Like, what is that statement to the rest of the the nation?
The sad part is probably not that much like the national media. They're just going to brush it off and be like, oh, they should have done that. But like, to anybody that knows, I think it's going to mean a lot. And this Iowa team, they're a real squad now. And like I said, they are very well coached. They gave Indiana a run for their money down to the very end. I think they're really good at what they do. And I think that's why it would be impressive to once again, I mean, Oregon's had some tough road games now. This is a lot of traveling they're having to do. So I think it would prove a lot to me of, like I said, where this Oregon team's able to go from here. If they make a statement, well, I'm buying into a lot more of this Oregon hype. But if it's very close, you either lose, you just come out on top, it's thinking, all right, well, I mean, they're still battle tested, but I don't know exactly how they're going to fare against those top upper echelon type teams. I mean, we saw it against Indiana, and it was close until the end. But that would be my biggest thing, is just how do you come out off of some time off and just kind of, are you able to come out and show everything that you are, this explosive offense, a defense that will create turnovers, and like I said, a front seven that has been pretty dang good, but now here's your real test going against a real offensive line.
Now, you don't have a dog in this hunt, but I got to ask you, and I know you're not going to play to the crowd that you're listening or you're talking to right now here on the West Coast, but who do you got in the game?
still got Oregon. I think Oregon just has so much more talent. I think you have the explosiveness on offense. I think Kenyon Sadiq gets very involved against some linebackers that are very good, but I don't know if they can carry the field with him vertically. Same thing with Johnson. When you get in those two tight end sets, I don't know how Iowa will respond to that. That's been a big problem for a lot of different defenses, is when Oregon comes out with two tight ends that are incredibly athletic, but they can also block it at an extremely high level. You don't really know where they go from there. So I think if you're Stein, you're saying, hey, let's come out in a lot of that. And then we can start to get into spreading them out. But let's establish the run. Let's get Davidson and Hill and those guys moving. And then we can start to stretch the field vertically where, like I said, I think you have a matchup advantage with your playmakers. So that's why I will take Oregon. I'll say, what's the line? What's the line sitting at right now?
It's 3.5.
Oh, I'll take Oregon with 7. Here we go.
Okay, wow. All right, real takes and a rising star in this industry, former offensive lineman at Penn State, and he joined. So next time, Landon, by the way, you get your nickname next time you come on the show, by the way.
Oh, boy.
It should be the
I can't wait.
third time you get your nick. I already got it picked out. I'm going to show Justin. I'm not going to tell you until you're on next time. Hey, have a great weekend. Enjoy your content, and thanks for being a part of the program, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Enjoy the game.
All right, there he goes, the great Landon Tengwall. National College Football Analyst. You can watch him on YouTube. Great content, and he's a Chili's guy. I'm a Chili's guy. I like Chili's. Sure. You know, I don't mind Red Robin, Red Lobster, BJ's, Texas Red. I'm just going to name off a bunch of restaurants. Yeah. Maybe somebody's going to give us a national contract as well. We can pump for it. When we come back, the Skopil-Damas, the great Erik Skopil, joins us on the Danny and Justin radio program. Baby J and I will have our rants on the college football playoff rankings that were unveiled last night. Justin was blowing my phone up.
I was?
I hadn't even
noticed.
You were
part of the rotation?
Yes. I'm in a rotation? Where? No,
yeah, there was about 5 people that I texted when I saw the rankings.
Okay, so where am I? No, so this is important, and don't lie, because I'll know. Where am I in the rotation?
You were 2.
Okay.
My mother is number 1.
Oh, well, then I'm fine with that.
My mom cares about college football.
That actually touches my heart that I was number 2 right after your mom.
There you go.
Oh, my God. I'm going to cry right now. I'm all verklempt. Let's head on over to the Oregon Man Clinics hotline at 541-343. 5673 is a favorite of ours. He's number 22 in your program, number 1 in your hearts. From Duck Territory 24/7 Sports. It's the great Skopil-Damas. It's Erik Skopil joining us. How are you doing, buddy?
Been a long day, been a long week, but it's going to get longer and better as it goes. Heading out to Iowa in a couple of days. So excited about that.
Iowa. We'll talk about that. We're going to shove that for a second. We'll talk about that game and what's going on with the Duck football program after the college football playoff rankings were revealed. We have some questions we're going to ask you. But first, let's start with basketball. And Kelly Graves' squad, they ran away, 24 steals, forced 32 turnovers. But my question for you to jump out to this is Oregon has 9 kids that come back for Kelly Graves, and then they add in a few transfers, including Avery Kane, who did not shoot well in her debut, but she didn't have to. Mia Jacobs, another one who did play very well, 16 points with 6 rebounds. Elisa Mevius, Sarah Rambis played well. Katie Fiso played well. What was your first impression of this Duck women's basketball team?
I think the first thing that just stands out is stylistically, it's so different than what it's been the last couple of years, but so much more in line with what we become accustomed to seeing Kelly Graves do while at Oregon. And as somebody who did an undergraduate at Gonzaga and covered him for a couple of years as a college student while he was up there, this is very much more, this is just how he likes to play, which is up and down. You want to get the ball moving, get out in transition.
Spacing, all that stuff, right? Yeah.
All the stuff that's basically fun to watch with basketball is how Kelly Graves likes to coach basketball. And not that the last couple of teams lacked fun or were an eyesore to watch, but it was a much more slow, methodical kind of, playing through your center and kind of just stuck in a half-court offense, defense that wasn't really in line with what I was accustomed to seeing. But what I saw both in the exhibition last week, but then also on Monday against West Georgia was just looks like, hey, this is the way he likes to coach basketball. This is the way the recruits he's recruited, frankly, like to play basketball. And the way that they were unselfish as well as so active on both ends of the court, I think is a really encouraging sign. Now, that was the first impression. Second impression, if we're going to get into kind of things that are concerning, is there is a decided lack of size. They don't have much rim protection, and it wasn't an issue in the exhibition game against Western Oregon or against West Georgia, smaller teams. But I do get a little bit. I'm aware of the fact that there are going to be matchups that are really problematic for them, where they're going to have a ton of success causing turnovers, a ton of success playing in transition and running, because when it does get into the half court, they frankly don't have the contingency plan to turn and say, hey, we're going to bring in the 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" center off the bench that can kind of play this style. They're really built top to bottom to play an up-tempo, fast style of play, which I think is going to be in their favor a lot of matchups and a lot of nights. But there are going to be games this year where you kind of look up and go, ooh, this isn't quite the team I'm used to watching play. And it's because the other team does have that more traditional, entry pass, 6'6", going to turn it and put it in off the backboard player that Oregon's really just lacking right now. So I think those are the two kind of things. A, they're fast, they're built for speed to get up and down and score game. Both the exhibition and the game against West Georgia, the opener, scored over 100 points. I think we'll see them score in the 80s and 90s a lot more this year. I also think there are going to be matchups where you're going to be like, ooh, it'd be great if they had kind of that counter punch that they could throw. That it seems like right now, at least, they're kind of lacking.
Erik with a K _Skopil. You can follow him on Twitter, and he's with us right now on the Danny and Justin radio program. So, Erik, if what I'm hearing you say is that for Oregon women's basketball to be successful this year, they have to go through being able to maintain a strong shooting percentage throughout this season, because they're not going to get a lot of second chance points. So if you have an off shooting night, it could be problematic. But also on the flip side of that is that they're going to have to play suffocating defense to deny those post players entry in the paint, correct?
Yeah, no, I think those are two true points as well. And it's been encouraging that I think the 3-point shooting is better this year. You mentioned Avery Kane having a kind of an off night. She was 5 of 7 in the exhibition game from 3, looked really good there. They have a number. Sarah Barham, a true freshman. I don't know how much she'll play in counting games, but she's a sharpshooter. They've got, I think, just more players on this team who can really knock down the 3-point shot. I think that part's going to be pivotal. And again, that is more kind of what we're accustomed to seeing with Kelly Graves' coach teams. Is not only is the pace up and down, but this is going to be a team with a lot of sharpshooters. Mm-hmm. They're going to spread the court, and they're going to be reliable from distance. I think that is going to be a strength. I don't think it'll be necessarily the type of strength it was when Sabrina was here, where you were leading the country in 3-point percentage and 3-point makes. But I think there's enough players in this team to do that successfully. And I was really encouraged. Again, it's West Georgia, it's Western Oregon, but I've been encouraged by the defensive activity, the length, and the athleticism, and the ability to make things difficult for opposing offenses so far. So I think there's a nice blend and marriage on this roster. And you just kind of look at it and go, no, they don't have the traditional 6'5", 6'6" player, but they have a ton of players in kind of that 5'10" to 6'2" range,
and very athletic, and
and they can be interchangeable, and they can mix and match and kind of work together. So I think it's a really nice blend of a roster. And especially as they kind of find their footing, if they can kind of perfect playing this certain style, I think it can be a really profitable way to approach the game.
Erik Skopil from Duck Territory with us on the Danny and Justin radio program, and kind of what you guys are talking about with, you're going to have ultimately, I think, 4 players out there that can score at all 3 levels and handle the ball and pass. And then you're also going to have at least one player in the inside, say Rambis, Amina Muhammad, who are going to be that a little bit taller. Well, Philly's not here, but
okay, the other Philly.
Oh, right. But you get my point. Is that you're going to have a player that isn't that post player, but is going to be in that 6'3", 6'4" range. How much more important does it make it on those inside players with everything they have and the depth on the outside?
Sarah Rambis has been really impressive to me. She's a player who it was kind of up and down. I think the first couple of years she would come in and have moments of brilliance, but then also moments where it just didn't look like she was really comfortable playing the way that they wanted to play. She's great in transition, but she's also probably maybe the best mid-range jump shooter on this team right now, and has shown the ability to shoot it from, out to 3-point range. I don't think she's actually made a 3-point shot, but she's got certainly the range. She made one just inside of it. I think she offensively is pivotal. She had 28 in the exhibition and 13 in the first counting game. If she can be a 15-point per game scorer for her, which is maybe asking too much for a player who's but more of like a 4 or 5 point per game player in the past, but her ability to be consistent in the mid-range, be consistent around the rim, and just to be a presence is key. Was impressed with Amina Muhammad's activity in the opener. I think she's a player who is maybe doesn't really have the ability to create much for herself offensively, but can be that kind of rebounder, putback player. Obviously can score around the rim and set up. They have enough there. They are not going to be a team that plays through its posts. And in fact, I think you'll see them play quite a bit of like almost 5 out entirely.
Right.
Where it's like there's a player maybe around the post, but she's not really tasked with calling for the ball much and really initiating much offense. Like when Filipina Che was here, she was touching the ball basically every possession. There are going to be sequences here where you don't see the bigs really touch it very much outside of offensive, defensive rebounds because the guards are the ones, kind of orchestrating and leading everything. And I think that, again, broken record, but that's the way Kelly Graves teams have historically played. And again, it just feels more like you're watching the teams that we're used to seeing him coach.
Well, you're going to have double duty. The Ducks continue their homestand Saturday, 2 p.m. on the MKA floor, Big Ten Plus, and you'll also be watching the Oregon football team. And then that's where we're going to transition to. As Skopil Damas joins us, Erik Skopil covers football, women's basketball for Duck Territory 24/7 Sports. Follow him, Erik_Skopil on Twitter. We've helped him push over 10,000 followers on his account. You can share some of those with us. And he's much taller than you think he is, by the way.
Yes.
Much taller. Of course, I'm diminutive,
but tells you something about Danny's height.
Yeah, thanks very much. I can defend myself as we go along here. So news.
How tall did you think I was? You think I was short?
No, I didn't think you were short. I think you were average height, like a 5'10",
like 5,
something
5'11".
like that. You're 6'2", aren't you? Did I nail it?
6'3" with sneakers, 6'2" without.
See, okay, I nailed it. I just did that by comparison.
So they stuck you in the post when you were younger.
I was a late bloomer. I was more of a guard, and then I stuck myself in the post. I've told people by the time I was about 20, I was a combination of Zydrunas Ilgauskas post hooks and Jason Kidd passing, but more Zydrunas Ilgauskas athleticism. That was why I was down there.
That a boy. All right, so let's transition over to football. Weird. So Oregon loses 2 defensive backs this week. Jahil Florence, I can almost 100% understand that because he was a highly regarded recruit, injured, and just kind of find himself outside the rotation, and he knows he can go play, and he's going to go play somewhere else. This thing that broke today with Dakota Fields, basically not talking to the coaching staff, and Dan Lanning says he didn't come to work. We haven't talked to him, and he finds out basically on social media that he's gone. I mean, is this where we're at right now? Really?
I mean, I was a couple of things. I was surprised when I asked the question to Dan at the Wednesday press conference what his response was. And I guess I shouldn't have been because the story announcing that On3 broke, that he would be transferring, was released right in the middle of practice.
Wasn't he? Did he seem upset?
He didn't seem like, and I've asked him, or somebody's asked him in the media cohort about transfers all the time, and most recently on Monday with Jaleel Florence, and it's almost always been the kind of response he gave. And frankly, I had a shelf story written. I mean, it's just a pre-written thing, or I was just going to throw the quote in. Yeah. I had to rework the story because I was going to write, I was writing, was complimentary of Dakota and had these nice things to say. And instead it was, and I'm sure ultimately he feels that way, but it did feel like a level of being blindsided that took me off guard. And I think everybody in the room was like, oh, wow. And like, not only is this news to us over the last couple of hours, this is news to Dan Lanning and maybe the coaching staff. So yeah, very unusual circumstances. Fields, of course, not a player who we have any history with, really. Redshirt last year, didn't play a game, played 3 games this year.
Right.
Pretty decent recruit, like a 4-star, top 120 recruit. So somebody who had some upside, clearly wasn't up to par with the starting corners on his team who are all the same year or even a year younger than him. So you get some impetus to leave, and again, I can't speak to how all this was handled, but if he didn't convey to Dan or the staff and he just basically no call, no showed into work, that's not a great way to handle business. And certainly in the transfer portal era, where I'm not saying he's not going to lack options probably, but that's a bridge you might have burnt kind of unnecessarily with how you handled it. Not that I think they're going to trash him out the door to other schools, but if the other schools come in, they're going to ask, well, what actually happened? Because we saw your quote, and they're going to have to be honest of he handled his business in a way that was kind of not indicative with what we're used to here. So very unusual for sure.
Yeah, in any business, you're not going to be able to put that on your resume if you go and
you napalm that bridge is what you did.
So this is now 2 defensive backs. So kind of clear here that these are players that are looking at the depth chart and saying, hey, am I going to see the field? Am I going to be able to play? Is there another position that you think that Oregon might have a couple guys maybe at the same position group take off?
Great question.
Well, I think quarterback is, and I'm not going to report anything, but there certainly seems to be a pretty clear hierarchy, and it surprised a lot of people, and it wouldn't surprise me
if Dante comes back, right?
If Dante comes back and Brock Thomas is the number 2 quarterback, what does that leave Austin Novosad and Luke Moga, right? That's something certainly that stands out. Running back is already pretty clear, and I know that there's been reporting to the contrary, even by Matt Zenitz from 24/7 Sports and a couple other outlets, that Mekhi Hughes is not a sure gone conclusion to leave, but it certainly kind of feels like that's the expectation when you're shut down midway through a season, your first year at a school, and you're a player with that pedigree. Wouldn't be surprised if other players leave there. Because again, if you're doing the parallel to cornerback, where it's a couple of really young players playing a lot and some players of the same age or older not seeing the field, that's what the future at running back looks like, right? With Jordan Davison and De'Ara Hill Jr.
We can see
being
that.
the backfield of the future.
Yeah.
If you're like a DeJohn Riggs or a Jay Harris or even a Jaden Lamar, I'm not saying all those guys would transfer, but if you're just trying to put together position groups where it makes sense, I'd point to running back as probably the next logical one, using the same kind of themes of why it makes sense. And obviously quarterback kind of fits in a different way, but for similar reasons.
The Danny and Justin radio program. One last question for you, Skopil. So first of all, last of all, you have your 5 Skopil predictions. That's going to drop tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Duck Territory, 24/7 Sports. Go sign up right now. What do you want to see out of Oregon this weekend at Iowa, at Kinnick Stadium, in what's probably going to be not the same environment in terms of the weather, but similar environment against Wisconsin, kind of a slugfest? Iowa comes in. You're going to have to try and push them around on the line. They're very good. They're a traditional Big Ten team. What do you want to see out of Dan Lanning's team this weekend?
I think just improvements in terms of offensive
prowess,
scheme, offensive execution, offense, just in general. Like, the thing that gets lost a little bit, and again, I think there's obviously the second half was what it was, but the weather was fairly cooperative early in that game.
It was.
And yet there was an inability really to do anything offensively.
Right.
And so this is a team that is in Iowa that is not massively better than Wisconsin offensively. Like, this is, I think, Wisconsin actually has more passing yards per game this season. I was only 16th out of 18 teams in the Big Ten. Wisconsin's 18th in total yardage. So,
but they're disciplined. But Iowa's disciplined.
Right. And my point is that, like, Iowa is more likely, even though they're not like, they don't jump off the page offensively, but they're more likely to take advantage if you sputter early and if you're unable to really get anything going. So that first quarter feels really important.
Okay.
Finding some. I think another thing I've been thinking about is just the tempo and pace in this game. Like, we don't really talk about these terms quite as much in football like we do in basketball, I think, but like they're pretty decidedly different in how they approach offensive football. Whereas like, I think Iowa would love to play a game where each team has 3 possessions a half. You know what I mean? And it's just slow, methodical drives and first team to 21 wins. I think Oregon could play that game and be successful. They'd much rather it be like what they saw against Rutgers. Obviously, we're not going to see that. No way they're going to get 750 yards against maybe the best defense in the country, or certainly one of the 2 or 3 better ones.
Yeah.
But finding a way to get some explosive plays. Like Oregon's one of the more explosive offenses in terms of plays of 20 yards or 40 yards or just kind of chunk plays in the country. I was among the best at eliminating them or keeping them from happening. So I think that's one to me that feels important is just the pace of like, what tempo does this game play at? And if you're Oregon, you really kind of want to set that early. And that's why I think that first quarter is really important. I think it's going to be hard to win a game if it's the same playbook as Penn State, Wisconsin, Indiana, where you don't start very fast and it's a low-scoring first half, and then you have to kind of turn on the jets a little bit.
Yeah.
I was a tough team to do that against, and so I think if you're able to establish a bit of an early lead and force Iowa to try to come back, like that really plays in your favor. And then I guess just one last one is Dante Moore. I want to see him play like a dog, right? Like I want to see him kind of have that
explode
competitive nature that we saw against Penn State that was, I think, kind of absent at times against Indiana. And unfortunately, because of injury, we didn't really get to see down the stretch against Wisconsin. Like you want to see your young quarterback demand the offense to have success and really execute at a high level. So those are some things I guess I'm looking forward to most on Saturday.
All right, buddy. Great insight. We always appreciate you being on the program. Thanks. Erik Skopil, the great Skopil-Damas. You can read his musings and listen to him. Aughts and Audibles, Duck Territory, 24/7 Sports. Thanks, Erik. Love you, buddy.
Talk to you guys.
All right, there he goes. Erik Skopil leaves. You and I get one last rant. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes. Okay, here we go. Danny and Justin, Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. All right, we got problems with the CFP. We got like 2 minutes to talk about it.
All right.
Ohio State number 1 in the first rankings. Indiana 2, Texas A&M at 3. I don't think we have any problems with that. But now we start getting into some problems. Alabama at 4, Georgia at 5, Ole Miss at 6. Then BYU, Texas Tech, Oregon at 9, Notre Dame at 10. So here's one of my biggest problems with this is that you're penalizing, and yes, it's our team, meaning in our region, you're penalizing Oregon for a schedule that you can't predict who's going to do what. And there were talks in the room that we heard afterwards that Oregon was ranked at 9 because the coaches said Oregon looks pretty good. So if it would have just been up to strength of schedule, RPI, and everything else, Oregon would have been ranked lower. So are they setting up Oregon to fail, Justin?
No, not necessarily. Oregon, all they need to do is win.
All right, so what's your beef?
I don't like how they're at 9, personally. But it's because I think...
You tweeted, you sent me a text saying that was well, I can't repeat what you sent me.
Can we not say that on the air?
No, we cannot say that on the air.
No, I thought it wasn't apropos. I thought that there were some people that had Oregon a little bit lower, and they were like, when I texted them, I wasn't happy. They were like, "Oh, what did you expect?" Or I said I was surprised, or whatever I said. They were like, "Oh, did you think Oregon actually like you unhappy with this or happy?" And I was like, "No, I think they should have been a little higher." And quite frankly,
I had them at between 5 and 7. I would have been fine with
exactly, and I'm the same way. And I know I'm looking ahead a little bit to the 8-9. Possibly going to Ohio State in the quarterfinal, and I know some people don't care about that. I don't want to see that personally if I'm an Oregon fan. But I don't love Notre Dame at 10. I felt like what happened to when we had Notre Dame out 2 weeks in when they lost the first 2 games? What happened to that?
I don't know. Short memories. Very short memories.
I got fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes!
Just burned my Hawaiian pizza.
Uh-oh.
Should have put it on aloha temperature. Aloha.
I got it.
Aloha temperature. All right. On the program tomorrow, the great People's Commissioner of College Football. Save us, please. Josh Pate on the program tomorrow. Thank goodness. So this is going to be must-listen radio tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in Eugene and Newport and wherever you're at. For Baby J, I'm Danny. God bless. Put a smile on your face. Someone else's. They deserve it. So do you. Thanks to Landon. Thanks to Skopil. Back tomorrow. Peace.